there's going to be this awkward 2 seconds before my intro. Okay, what's up, primates? I'm Shane the Skeptic. Welcome to my channel. Today with me I have Jenna Belk. Jenna, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How are you?
Not bad at all. So today I wanted to talk about two main topics. Obviously, they were in the title. They are secular meditation and street epistemology. The second one, both of us will have more in common to talk about. The first one, something I'm trying to get myself into. So you run a secular meditation sort of, community thing on your Twitch stream. What is it? Why don't you tell me what it is exactly?
So basically, I had some friends. I've been talking about meditation a whole lot, and I had some friends that were like, well, how do you do it? You know, how do you meditate? And I'd had so many people asking, I know that it's something that I consider really important. Like exercise, like eating, like drinking water and sleeping and all that. I consider like in there.
It is an exercise. It's a mental exercise. Yeah.
Yeah. But I consider it as important as each of those things.
Okay.
And so I talk about it a lot. So I've had people ask me, well, how do you do it? And so I was like, well, actually, let me do it on Twitch, since I do it I try to do it every day. Anyway, and I'm also one of those people that if I have people that are expecting me to be somewhere, I'm more likely to kind of hold myself accountable and show up. So I'm trying to do that every weekday morning so that people can have both of those. They can see how I do it. And I also encourage people to be very critical of it. You know, if the music that I'm listening to isn't working for you, take a note. When you do it on your own, find music that works for you and let me know what you found, and we can try to add that to the mix or something, you know. But it's basically, I'm just trying to give people like a starting template, and they can just do whatever they want with it. Make it their own.
It's something that I think really needs to be promoted, because I realized, like, I started thinking about it lately because of the fact that I used to meditate and I stopped doing it a while ago. And it's not something that I really made the decision to stop doing. It's just one day I realized it had been a long time since I had done it. And I feel like it's a really important thing to do. And it's something that if you're someone who is a skeptic, or even if you're not necessarily a skeptic, just if you're someone who is a secular person and you don't believe in any spirituality or any of that woo stuff, it can be difficult to find either guided meditation or communities for meditation that don't really involve any of that. And I think that those kind of people, you know, their hearts are in the right place. I was saying this earlier, how I kind of feel, and I don't think they're really doing this, it's just a feeling, but I kind of feel like I'm being manipulated, or someone's trying to manipulate me while I'm in a meditative state to kind of go, okay, and then here's the spirituality.
Well, I mean, somebody can. That's how hypnosis works, I think. Like you get somebody in a trance, like relaxed.
Right, and that does happen. So it's hard to really feel like it's not happening, or to, you know, it's hard not to. It's hard to trust somebody when they're running something like that. So I thought it was great that you're actually running something for, and you know, I am sure you're not insisting people be secular or insisting that they be naturalists to, you know, join the stream community, just to say, like, here are tools that don't require any spirituality. You know, here's some tools for meditation, or here's what I do, and something that helps me in my own meditation. So Let's talk about some of those tools. What are some of the things you do to start your meditation?
First, I get settled in my chair. Like, okay, just kind of place yourself, get your posture, like kind of sit upright, right? Kind of look around you, kind of take in where you are and kind of settle in, and then I just talk a lot about breathing, and taking slow, deep, full, long breaths. And then I also recommend things like, well, the fact that meditation is, and again, no expert,
right,
someone with an interest and fascination with meditation, but
yeah,
but meditation is just practicing focus on something. And so I recommend that you focus on something in the present moment when you're doing the kind of meditation that I'm doing, where you're kind of giving yourself 15 minutes, you're setting a timer, you're allowing yourself and your mind to completely relax and not worry about time, not worry about anything that you should have done yesterday or need to do tomorrow. Just look at where you are right now and just be aware of the present moment. So you can be aware of your external surroundings. You can be aware of your internal emotions. Try to literally just sit there and just try to figure out what emotions you're feeling. Really go deep inside. Or you can try to sit and just focus on, your physical state. Focus on each different part of your body and really examine and try to, doctor yourself up a little bit. Try to figure out what's going on and how you're doing. And if you do that for just 15 minutes a day, I recommend doing it more than that if you can, but at least just 15 minutes a day, then, it's amazing what your mind can do. Like I did it 15 minutes a day, twice a day when I was working before the pandemic took my job away. And that's how I quit smoking, was I replaced it with that. And it would feel like I took like a 2-hour
I'm sorry.
nap.
I just want to make clear that I'm not laughing at what happened to you. It's just when you said the pandemic took your job, I heard the South Park, like, it took her job. So I was like, oh my God, she's saying something serious. Don't. Okay.
It's okay.
Well, sorry about that. Just wanted to clarify. That's why I started laughing, not because you lost your job.
It's okay.
So when was this? Like right at the beginning?
This is about 6 months before we had to close down.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had gotten in a really good routine. There was actually, even in the building, I was so lucky at the job that I had, man. There was a room that I could go to and I could lock the door and sit on this couch and turn off the light and set my meditation timer. And I could just meditate for 15 minutes. And I think I already said it, but I would feel like I took like a 2-hour nap each time I did it. And I would just feel refreshed and all right, ready to go my next portion of the day, and it was just kind of like a restart button. And it was very energizing, very refreshing. So now it's a little bit harder to find the time to do that because I don't go to an office anymore.
Right.
But that's another reason that I started that stream, is that I do it too.
Right. Yeah, that's something really important because, like I said earlier, I didn't make a decision to stop doing it. It was kind of just one of those things where I was doing it less often, not paying attention. And then the next thing I knew, it had been over a year since I'd done it.
Right. Right.
And I was just like, okay, if I had, I don't know, some point in my day just taken, even if it was just 15 minutes, it doesn't have to be a few hours. Like, it's good if you can get yourself to do it for a few hours. But I think a lot of us have to get ourselves. Yeah, I think a lot of us have to get ourselves there because some people I know they can meditate and they can just kind of lose track of time as they're doing it.
Well, that's what I try to do. I can't. It's harder to do that when I'm streaming, but that's what I try to do when I'm on my own. And I also, again, encourage people to do it on their own so that they can do that and not have my voice interrupting.
Right. I can't really get there. I think I usually, if I do meditate, it's usually something like 15 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. I recommend if you're new to meditation, I recommend starting with like 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Even 1 minute if you're really anxious, because a minute can feel like a very long time when you're just sitting in your head and you're brand new to meditation.
Yeah.
I remember that's how it was for me when I started. It was impossible.
Right. If you're actually stopping and you're paying attention to how you feel, your body, where your shoulders are, where your arms are, what your surroundings are.
And you've never done that before.
And you actually pay attention to your breath. You feel it as it's going, back, as it's coming out, and as you're paying attention to all of these things, you're like, wow, this really does slow time down a lot. So okay, that's a really healthy thing to get into. So was there something other than the Twitch stream that you did with meditation? You said you had some of it on your YouTube channel. Was that the same thing or something different?
So that's on the Twitch stream. And so the Twitch videos disappear every 2 weeks. So I try to upload those to YouTube, and I put those in their own playlist. And then on Twitch also I had the paint stream, carrot noises.
Oh yeah, okay, the carrot noises. And that's just something you do. It's a relaxing kind of thing that you have where you paint and you just talk about what you're painting as you do it.
Yes. I'm not there to debate. It's like I'm encouraging people to not obsess over this atheism stuff, and because when you first become an atheist, as I'm sure you remember, you get overwhelmed, and it can be terrifying. And so you can obsess over trying to figure out where you are, because you can feel unsafe in a world that's completely unfamiliar to you.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to encourage people to take a deep breath,
Take a breath. Yeah.
To craft, to find time to do things that you like.
Yeah, if you're an activist, every day can't be activism.
Exactly.
You have to do things for yourself.
Right.
You can't argue with apologists every day.
Right.
It'll take a toll on you for sure. I think it's something that you need to get a break from for the sake of your own mental health. Any kind of activism, whether it's atheist activism or pro-choice activism, if you argue with pro-lifers, I would say actually maybe then you need even more breaks. Extremists anyway. Because I recently had a debate with an atheist pro-lifer, but he wasn't an extremist, and he was someone who his case made an exception for medical necessity. So I felt like I could at least reason with him. That wasn't like the religious people at Planned Parenthood who it's like. Yeah, you need a break if you're doing that kind of activism. But you're right, and all any and all.
A lot of people are doing a lot of different kinds.
Right, and it takes a toll on you. And even if you're not an activist, whatever it is you're doing, you have to take a break from thinking about these kinds of things. You have to take a break from thinking about, I guess, important things that are going on, but things that things that drain you, things that you need to relieve yourself from thinking about, from having that burden of just being stuck on it. And that can be difficult depending on what it is you're trying to get away from, And
I'm not trying to encourage that people just stop, doing everything, stop working. It's just, it's literally, it's just 15 minutes a day for meditation. And then an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours once a week, to really relax and wind down and paint, because it's important that you make a little bit of time for yourself.
Yeah, very important to do that. Out of the question, got to get time for yourself, whether you're an introvert or not, especially if you're an introvert. I figured that out when my girlfriend moved in, and I was like, I had only lived by myself for 3 years or something. So I wasn't sick of her, but I was craving my time alone as an introvert, and
it's different.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I started getting time alone again, and I was like, okay, this is getting a few hours to myself is, just for the sake of like silence and being able to think, and just getting alone time is an important thing, I think, for everybody, but just for some more than others, really.
Right.
So yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we got to plug all of that stuff. So what was it? Everything we just went over again? Real quick recap.
Genesis, just keep breathing on
Genesis.
Twitch, and carrot noises.
Carrot noises.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Now I wanted to talk a little bit more about something that we've both made a hobby out of at some point, and that is the fun art of street epistemology. How would you describe or define street epistemology, like really quickly off the top of your head?
Investigation into how people come to the conclusions they do.
Okay, that makes sense. Because, I wasn't actually, when I first started learning about street epistemology, I wasn't really into philosophy at the time like I am now. So I wasn't familiar with the branch of philosophy that is epistemology. So I didn't even know what epistemology meant.
I didn't either.
I came to know that later on that, epistemology is, the branch of philosophy associated with how we know what we know. So street epistemology, what I thought at first was it had to be something where you went out on the streets and did it. And I didn't realize that SE was actually a little bit more like a method that could be applied to everyday conversations.
Yeah, conversational technique.
Yeah, it's a really good one to have, because I feel like if you talk to somebody, even because you feel like, okay, I'll just present them with facts. Facts should convince them, right? Well, to you're giving them facts. They might not trust what you're saying to be a fact. They might just take it as pushback. And if you can kind of take on an approach that doesn't trigger some backfire effect, doesn't trigger some defense mechanism, and you just ask them, well, why do you think that? That could be really effective.
Well, that's the point, is that you're not there to teach them.
Right.
That's all. All you're trying to do is investigate their epistemology.
Right.
Is ask them and genuinely be concerned and polite if you can, because people put their guard up if you're more than polite.
Yeah.
And just be genuine and just try to figure out, how did you come to that conclusion? Where did you get that information? How did you verify it? Let's look at that, because I had never looked at that before, and I'm just curious. Just be honest. Because the fact is that you could be wrong. Whatever fact you're throwing at them, you could be mistaken on too. And so it's not really, I don't think it's our responsibility to give them the facts, because I'm not a scientist.
Right.
So, you shouldn't necessarily take my word for it. So
if you talk to someone and you just question them, it's a lot better.
Them to look it up for themselves and really find out how they came to know what they know.
Right. Somebody starts saying something, and sometimes you might just not be convinced that they're right, but other times you might specifically be convinced that they're wrong, which is a step further. And if that happens, it can be a little bit difficult. It could be,
that's the whole point, though, is try to remove your judgment about their opinions at all. Try to remove your opinion from it, because it's not about you. Because it's almost not even really about them. It's more about methodology itself. Right. It's about their methodology. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because somebody could talk to me about how they arrived at a belief, and whatever I learn from that discussion, it isn't necessarily something that I have to learn about them. It's really, okay, here's a methodology I've seen used before, and then I could identify that same method if I see it used in another situation. And I find that to be interesting. So when doing street epistemology, for those of you who don't know, if you're familiar with the Socratic method, Street epistemology is essentially a use of the Socratic method in which you're not saying anything to argue with the person, but rather you're just sort of applying the Socratic method to a belief that they hold, and coming to ask them how they arrived at their conclusions, and just getting them to really question each of their premises along the way. And when I do this, I try to kind of identify, if I can, make out some sort of deductive argument in my head of how they arrived at it. Mm-hmm. So if I'm talking to somebody about a belief that they hold, and it's a ghost story, right?
Right.
And I ask somebody why they think they saw a ghost, why they think ghosts are real. And they start telling me that this one time something moved and they don't know what happened. Therefore, a ghost exists. So in my head, I'm trying to add as many premises as I can together to see what is it that they're doing. What is the reasoning that they're using to go from, okay, I saw, something move. I couldn't explain it. I arrived at this. You might ask them, because then you could see what that method is, apply that same method to something else and ask them. So if I thought, because if it's, let's just say, for example, an atheist who believed in ghosts, because they exist. A lot of people don't realize that. If you were talking to an atheist who believed in ghosts and you were to say, okay, so what you're saying is something happened. Yes. And you don't have an explanation for it. And you ask them these questions. As you're asking somebody about their belief, repeat back to them what you think they think, as long as you think it accurately reflects what they're telling you. And right. That way, if you're wrong, they can correct you.
Right. So along the process of discovery, try to stay with them. Try to be like, hey, I just want to understand. Help me out here. Are you saying this? Each step as they go, that as you're like, okay, well, did you verify it this way? Or how did you come to that conclusion? Or whatever question you're asking. When they answer you, it's usually a long-winded answer or a story. Or something. And so then you can just say, okay, let's clarify. Okay. Yes. And try to summarize it and put it very bluntly so that they can kind of hear it back and be like, is this what you're saying?
Yeah. Steelman it, but put it bluntly. So.
Steelman it.
Yeah. Are you unfamiliar with the term of steelmanning?
I thought I was. Now I'm not so sure.
Okay. So obviously you're familiar with a straw man. You can't debate and not know what straw mans are. So a steel man is almost the opposite of a straw man, where you repeat your opponent, or it doesn't have to be your opponent. Let's just say interlocutor, since it can be applied to SE as well. Right. And it's also something that's actually a really healthy thing to do in an intimate relationship, especially if you're having some sort of dispute.
Okay, so it's not like a straw man.
It's basically the opposite of a straw man, where you, instead of misrepresent what they say, or you make their idea sound weaker, you make their argument weaker, you repeat what they think and you make it sound stronger. So it's like you're building onto what they're saying. Right. And I've done this when I was interviewing people when I used to do Atheist Vanguard, where there were times when I would ask somebody like, so what you're saying is, and I would explain the methodology back to them, and they'd go, yeah, that. So if they feel like you put the idea they were conveying in words better than they put it themselves. So
it's not really a competition. It's more.
No, it's not. It's like the opposite. But the whole point is like somebody is telling you what they think, and you're trying to help word what they're saying better, to help make sure you.
I don't think so. I don't think it is your job to help them along. Even I think that and at least when I do it, my purpose is genuinely to understand, because every single time, actually, I would say that I've tried to investigate things like that, we come to a point where they just don't know how to answer. They're
right.
Like,
sometimes they don't know how to answer.
I got that.
But I don't know. Maybe I'm not really articulating what steel manning is very accurately. But it's really just repeating somebody's idea back to make sure that you properly understood it and you've like worded it properly. So
yeah,
that's what steel manning is. So it's not in any way misrepresenting or trying to tell them they should word it this way. It's just
right.
putting
It's
it
not. Yeah.
It's just putting it back to somebody and saying, okay, so what you're saying is this, and if you're wrong, this gives them the opportunity to correct you. And I've had this happen before too. So if I think they're making this argument of ignorance, and I go, wait, so you're saying that just because you don't know, you concluded this? If that's not what they're saying, it gives them the opportunity to go, no, that's not what I'm saying. And then we could explore the conversation further. It's like, okay, well, like, it's a good thing I didn't assume that that's what they meant. So then I could ask them, so like, what are you saying? So I think that's a really important thing to do is at some point, at some point in the conversation, see if your concept of what they're conveying is accurate. And if it's not, try to figure out why not. Where did you misunderstand that? Like, where did the misunderstanding begin? Right. And like you were saying, in SE especially, there's no competition. It's just, you might realize that you used this same methodology to arrive at something else, depending on what it is.
Yeah, I do it on myself all the time.
Right. I always try to tell people when I teach them about SE that walk into every conversation knowing that the mind that gets changed might be your own. Because you might ask somebody how they arrived at a belief, and they might give you a sufficient reason, and that might convince you.
And this person may surprise you. It may come from somebody that you don't expect to be that knowledgeable on that subject.
Right. So that's a really important thing to do. So have you, prior to the pandemic, gone out and done SE, like on the streets, like set up a stand or something and kind of ask people if they wanted to talk, like Anthony does?
I've only done it the one time with Anthony, but I've wanted to, and then the pandemic hit. So
yeah,
I need to get like some kind of a camera to carry around with me outside. I don't have one, so I don't have the ability to record it just yet, unless I did it on my phone, which
wouldn't be great. Yeah. I have the equipment necessary, and I just got vaccinated, so I guess in a few weeks or months or so, I might get back to doing SE like I used to do. But yeah, no, once COVID happened, I was like, okay, I'm not doing the upfront holding a microphone up to somebody, like not
people aren't going to approach you anyway. So
it's Texas, they will, especially the ones who want to talk about their gods. Yeah, they'll approach me. But no, it is what it is. So doing SE, it is something where it's really like you were saying, not about the person, just about the methodology. What are some mistakes that you've made in doing SE? Have you ever caught yourself like making a mistake and learning from it in doing it?
Well, I haven't done it that many times.
No.
It's I've listened to a lot of Anthony, and I guess I kind of have. Well, I've done my own twist,
right,
of it on AXP, right? It's like when I have a discussion, it's not street epistemology. I definitely use that as a guidebook. It's just that from my experience with talking to people about this topic or about sensitive topics, about beliefs, I typically get a little bit more firm at times than I would if I was going out and doing SE. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there are moments where, I mean, if they ask me a question, I'm going to answer it. When you're doing SE, try to avoid that. Try to avoid them flipping it on you. Try to avoid making it about you, because it's really not. Like, you're just the test. You're just, paper.
Yeah. You're just asking questions.
Exactly.
And you need to only be asking questions when you do SE. I remember that was difficult for me when I started doing it, because somebody would say something and you're like, it's an argument from ignorance fallacy. Or, oh, that's begging the question fallacy. And you don't tell them that. You don't explain that to them.
No, because the moment you do, they're just gonna be like, oh, this person,
Right.
and they're just not gonna listen to you anymore. They'll know that you're not on their side. It just for lack of better terminology. I hate putting it like that.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons Anthony used to do this thing where if they asked him what he thought, if he believed in God or not, he would say, he wouldn't tell them. He would like withhold from telling them because he didn't want to influence the way they answered the questions.
Exactly.
And I think that makes sense. I personally don't take that approach, and I think he doesn't do that anymore either. I think that he said that he does tell them now. My approach would be, I think maybe wait till after if you want to wait, for the sake of them answering without knowing. Just still be willing to tell them your position after the fact, because if you're asking them what they think, it could definitely come off as rude. If you're like, hey, tell me about whether or not you believe in a God and exactly why, and then they go, do you believe in God? And you're like, I don't want to tell you. I could see why that would come off as rude if it were to be like that.
Well, I wouldn't put it like that. I wouldn't put it like I don't want to tell you. If somebody asked me and I was trying to do SE correctly, I would just kind of, avoid it. I would just, well, do you? I'd be like, well, I don't know. I'm just curious about how you know things, because of X and the conversation that made me start doing SE on you.
So are you saying you would kind of like, when you say avoid, do you mean kind of like dodge it for the time being?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just be like, we can talk about that later if you want.
Okay. See, that's what I would do. I would tell them like, I would prefer for the sake of the interview, if I could just wait to tell you till after. And I feel like that would be a better approach, in my opinion, than just telling them like, well, let's see.
And I hate to be critical, but that's just how I am. So the difference that I see between those two things, by putting it, we can talk about it later if you want, versus I'd rather tell you after the interview. Those two different approaches. The first, I think, makes it seem a little bit more friendly, and the second makes it seem a little bit more intimidating, almost. Like you have a big secret that you are keeping from me, and that just kind of makes me.
Well, I would explain to them that the reason why is because I don't want my opinion to influence the way the interview goes. And I feel like as long as you're conveying that, because the reason I'm critical of the other method is because if someone were to come up to me, or not come up to me, if someone were to like ask me if I could explain a belief that I had and why, and if I asked them, well, what do you believe? If they like, because dodging a question can come off as rude. It might not be intended to be, but it can come off that way, especially if you're asking someone questions yourself. They might go, okay, well, why is this person who wants to ask me all of these questions not willing to answer any themselves? And if you kind of just explain to them that, it's just for the sake of this interview, I would rather have the interview in such a way where it isn't influenced by what my opinion is, and then simply tell them after the fact. That way you're not dodging questions, you're just waiting.
Well, but if I'm doing SE on somebody, I've already gotten an agreement from them to do that, because you're going to ask them very personal questions, and it's going to be question after question after question. And that can be very, very, very irritating to somebody who you didn't get consent first. Mm-hmm. So I always say that dodging after getting consent to ask them a whole bunch of questions, I don't think that would be considered inappropriate or rude. I think that would be exactly what we bargained. You know what I mean?
I guess it depends on where you're at in the conversation. Because if you were at the beginning of the conversation, I feel like you could explain it better.
I guess it just depends.
It's just, different approaches. And that's the thing. We're not all going to do it the same way. So it's good to kind of investigate, why you take your approach, why I take mine.
Right.
It's almost like a mini SE conversation about SE. Like, well, why do you do SE that way?
Right.
So, it makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna start getting ready for work because I just realized I gotta start wrapping it up for that.
Uh-oh.
So thank you so much for being on today, Jenna. What were the streams again? It was the Twitch stream, Genesis.
Genesis, just keep breathing, and then carrot noises, and then I also have Atheistasis on YouTube.
Atheistasis.
And that's on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. where I premiere each week, and I'm in the live chat. So I chat with people during, and then usually do a Discord chat after, kind of further discuss, because the whole point of the show is that I'm learning the whole new world that I'm in. And so I'm interviewing people, getting different perspectives. And so I discuss it after. Yeah.
For sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on. Everyone who's been in the stream, thanks for joining. Thanks for being active in the live chat, you guys. And everyone, take care. Be safe.